Hello students. So today we are going to see the interior of pharynx. So for the learning objectives, we have to explain the features of interior of pharynx. We have to understand the formation and the importance of the Waldes ring. And we have to describe the piriform fossa. Describe muscles of pharynx under origin, insertion, nerve supply, and action. Enumerate blood supply and nerve supply of pharynx. So for introduction, pharynx is a wide muscular membranous tube situated behind the nose, mouth, and larynx. It has three parts. The part behind the nasal cavity will be the nasopharynx. The part behind the oral cavity will be the oropharynx. And the part behind the larynx will be the laryngopharynx. Dimensions of the pharynx. Its length is around 12 to 15 centimeter, while its width is, it is divided into three parts. The upper part is 3.5 centimeter and is non-collapsible. That means its walls are rigid. The middle part is narrow, while the lowermost part is narrowest at almost 1.5 centimeter, except vermiform appendix, which is the narrowest part of the gastrointestinal system. So, what are the boundaries of the pharynx? Superiorly, we have the base of the skull. This is the base of the skull. Then we have the body of the sphenoid, and we have a basilar part of the occiput. So this is the superior boundary. Now, inferiorly, at the level of C6 vertebra, or anteriorly, the lower border of the cricoid cartilage, this pharynx continues as the esophagus. Now, posteriorly, we have a fascia called as a prevertebral fascia, which is actually the deep fascia of the neck. We will learn about this deep cervical fascia in upcoming lectures. Behind this fascia, we see the cervical vertebrae. So, starting from C1 to C6. Anteriorly, the wall is discontinuous and it is open to the nasal cavity, or it communicates with nasal cavity, oral cavity, and the larynx. So, what are the boundaries on either side? So, pharynx on each side is attached to in a continuous line from above downwards, medial pterygoid plate, then pterygomandibular raphe, then over the mandible, side of the tongue, then below that there is a hyoid bone, below that there is a thyroid cartilage, below that is the cricoid cartilage. The lower border of cricoid cartilage is the lowest limit of the pharynx. Then on either side, it communicates with middle ear cavity through auditory tube. So these are the total boundaries of the pharynx. So I told you that there is a vertebral fascia behind the pharynx. Okay. So what is this prevertebral fascia? The deep fascia of the neck is called as a deep cervical fascia, or another name for that is fascia colli. Now this fascia colli has three layers outside inwards. This is a cut section of the neck. Here we can see the outermost layer of the deep cervical fascia, that is called as a investing layer. This is a investing layer. So this is whole is the investing layer. Below this layer there are muscles, and in front of the trachea, this is trachea, there is a one more layer called as a pretracheal layer. So that is the second layer. Then we have a third layer called as a prevertebral layer, which is found in front of the vertebra and the vertebral muscles. So first outermost layer is investing layer, second layer is pretracheal layer, and the third layer is prevertebral layer. So neck viscera is found between pretracheal layer and prevertebral layer. We'll see more detail in next lectures. Let's go to remaining relations of the pharynx on each side. All of you know that over the mandible, behind there is a ear, external ear. Behind the ear, we have a mastoid process. Near the mastoid process, we have a styloid process. So this styloid process, along with its attachment, we called it as a styloid apparatus, which consists of 3 muscles and 2 ligaments, 3 carotids, that is common carotid artery, external carotid artery, and internal carotid artery. And the cranial nerves, which are related to these 3 arteries, that means last 4 cranial nerves are also in relation with pharynx. So these are the relations of the pharynx. I already told you that pharynx is divided into 3 parts. We can see here the part which is behind this is a nasal cavity. It's called as a nasopharynx. The part of the pharynx behind the oral cavity will be called as a oropharynx, and the part behind the larynx will be called as a laryngopharynx. So these are the subdivisions of pharynx. So we'll see one by one. Nasopharynx. Now it's behind the nasal cavity. So what are the boundaries? Obviously, superior boundary will be the base of the skull. This is the body of the sphenoid bone. And inferiorly, it is up to soft palate. Anteriorly, it communicates with the nasal cavity, and posterior and above will be the roof. So what are the features we can find in nasopharynx? In the roof, we can find is a nasopharyngeal tonsil. Now nasopharyngeal tonsil is a lymphoid aggregation found in a conical mass in the roof of the nasopharynx beneath the mucous membrane. Now this nasopharyngeal tonsil is very prominent in children, but is atrophies in adults. Sometimes due to infection, this nasopharyngeal tonsil may be enlarged in children. So it is called as adenoid. As it is enlarged, it blocks the posterior choanine. That means the posterior nasal apertures. So it will obstruct the nasal respiration. So it causes obligation for mouth respiration. So that is the importance of nasopharyngeal tonsil. Now, second part is called as a pharyngeal bursa or pouch of Luschka. This is a mucous diverticulum which extends upward into the nasopharyngeal tonsil from its apex, and it is covered. It contains mucous gland. So sometimes there may be retention of these secretions of the mucous gland, which will cause a cystic swelling in this region. Third feature is Rathke's pouch, or in other words, we call it as a pharyngeal hypophysis. I hope everyone knows hypophysis means pituitary gland. So this is the body of sphenoid, which contains a fossa called as hypopharyngeal fossa, which is the seat of pituitary gland. So this pituitary gland actually develops from Rathke's pouch. This Rathke's pouch remnants or tissues or cells from developing pituitary gland might remain in the roof of the nasopharynx. So this is called as a pharyngeal hypophysis. So these 3 features, that is nasopharyngeal tonsil, pharyngeal bursa or the pouch of Luschka, and Rathke's pouch. These 3 features can be found in the roof or the posterior wall of the nasopharynx. Now, on the lateral wall, we have more features. The first and foremost important one is auditory tube opening. Now, through this auditory tube, the nasopharynx is communicated with middle ear. So this auditory tube opening can be found 1.2 to 1.25 centimeter behind and below the inferior nasal concha. Now, before auditory tube opening, I want to introduce you the concas. The nasal cavity, it has divided into two parts by the nasal septum. From the lateral wall of the nose, there are three shelf-like projections which are extending towards the nasal cavity. So these horizontal shelf-like projections are called as a concha. They are three in number. Uppermost is called as a superior, then middle, and lowermost is called as an inferior nasal concha. So the auditory tube opening can be found 1.25 centimeter behind and below the inferior nasal concha. Now, behind, that is above and posterior to this opening, we have an elevation. This is called as a tubal elevation. On this tubal elevation, we found again a submucous lymphoid aggregation. This aggregation is called as a tubal tonsil. Now, importance of this tubal elevation is that whenever we have to introduce the catheter through this auditory opening for the equalization of air pressure on either side of the tympanic membrane, so we have to inflate the air through this auditory tube opening. So this tubal elevation can be helpful for the guidance of the catheter. So what is the importance of this opening? Naturally, it causes equalization of pressure on either side of the tympanic membrane or the eardrum. Next is, from this tubal tonsil, there are two mucous folds which are extending. One fold is called as a salpingo-palatine fold, which goes towards the palate. Second fold is called as a salpingo-pharyngeal fold, which is called as a which contains the muscle of the sternum, that is salpingopharyngeus muscle. So these are the two mucous folds we can see. Now, third feature we can find is called as a pharyngeal recess or the fossa of Rosenwald. This is a mucus covered deep depression which can be found behind the tubal elevation. So these are the features we can find in nasopharynx. We do have a sagittal section of the face in our dissection hall, and we will be able to see these features on the this sagittal section. So we have to remember again, I will revise fast, that nasopharynx is uppermost boundary is the base of the skull, body of the sphenoid. Lowermost boundary, soft palate. Anteriorly we have a nasal cavity, and posteriorly is the same as the roof. The roof has three features, that is nasopharyngeal tonsil. Second feature is pharyngeal bursa. Third feature is Rathke's pouch. Now, lateral wall of the nose has again auditory tube opening, tubal tonsil, and pharyngeal recess, that is fossa of Rosenwald. So these are the features of the nasopharynx. Next, we already learned about nasopharyngeal tonsil and tubal tonsil. These tonsils form a ring-like structure around the nasopharyngeal isthmus. So this ring is called as a Waldeyer's lymphatic ring. So it is composed of number of lymphoid aggregations. So first is the posteriorly and above is the adenoid, that is nasopharyngeal tonsil. On either side and posteriorly is the tubal tonsil. On lateral side, there is a palatine tonsils, and on the inferior side, on the dorsum of the tongue, we can find is the lingual tonsil. So they are arranged in a ring-like structure. So this ring is called as a Waldear's lymphatic ring. Now what is the function? They guard the openings, that is nasal cavity, oral cavity, and so they guard against the microorganisms which are entering into the body. So that is the importance of the Waldear's lymphatic ring. Now the next point is called as a nasopharyngeal isthmus. Isthmus means opening, gateway. Okay, so we have to understand how it is formed. In the front, we have a soft palate. On either side, we have a palatopharyngeal arches. This is a palatopharyngeal arches. Behind is the Passavant's ridge. Here is the Passavant's ridge, and this is the nasopharyngeal isthmus. Now, what is the importance of nasopharyngeal isthmus? Whenever a person tries to swallow the food goes from the oral cavity into the oropharynx and then it goes downwards. So, to avoid the regurgitation of food from the oropharynx up into the nasopharynx, we have to close this pharyngeal isthmus. So, closure of the isthmus is done by contraction of the muscles which are levator veli palatini, tensor veli palatini, and palatopharyngeus muscle. These are the soft palate muscle which we have already learned. So, palatopharyngeus muscle has two fasciculi and it goes circling around the pharyngeal tube. So, whenever it constricts, it closes down the nasopharyngeal isthmus or the opening. Because of this muscle, just below the mucus, there is a ridge formation, and this ridge is called as a Passavant's ridge. So that is the function of nasopharyngeal isthmus. Even if we are blowing the air from the mouth, at that time also, this nasopharyngeal isthmus has to close down because the air has to come from the laryngopharynx to oropharynx to the mouth cavity, and it should not go into the nasal cavity as we are blowing the air from the mouth. So after the nasopharynx, we'll move towards the oropharynx. Now for the oropharynx, the boundaries are: above is the soft palate, below will be the upper border of the epiglottis, anteriorly will be the oral cavity, while behind will be the cervical body. What are the features of the oropharynx? Compared to nasopharynx, the most important features, and they are the most common we found, is the palatine tonsil. Now this is again a lymphoid aggregation, and it is a part of Waldear's lymphatic ring. Now this tonsil can be found within a fossa called as a tonsillar fossa. This tonsillar fossa is bounded anteriorly by the palatoglossal arch, while posteriorly it is guarded by the palatopharyngeal arch, and it resides at the level of posterior 1/3 of the tongue. The palatine tonsils we will learn in detail in upcoming lectures, so we'll leave it to that. Just like the nasopharyngeal isthmus, we have an oropharyngeal isthmus to guard the oral cavity from the oropharynx. So, the boundaries of the oropharyngeal isthmus: above, obviously, there is a soft palate. On either side, there will be palatoglossal arch, and inferiorly, there will be the upper border of the epiglottis. Dorsum of the tongue. The function of this oropharyngeal isthmus: it closes during the deglutition to prevent the regurgitation of the food into the oral cavity. So it goes straight to oropharynx to laryngopharynx to esophagus. So it should not come back into the oral cavity. That's why at that time this isthmus closes down, so the oral cavity will cut down from the oropharynx. Now, there might be crossing of pathways, as there is a crossing of pathways in the oropharynx for food and air. So, the food and air might go into the opposite tubes if there is any disturbance for the closure of the oropharyngeal isthmus. So to understand this, we have to understand this from the nasal cavity. This green line suggests the air. It has to go from the posterior nasal apertures, that is choana. Then it comes to the nasopharynx. Then through nasopharyngeal or pharyngeal isthmus, it goes into oropharynx. From here, it goes into larynx, and then it goes into the trachea. While the food comes from the oral cavity, through oropharyngeal isthmus, it comes to the oropharynx. From oropharynx to laryngopharynx to the esophagus. So there is a crossing of food and air into the oropharynx. We will learn about deglutition in upcoming lectures again. So next part is laryngopharynx. Now laryngopharynx is just below the oropharynx. So its uppermost boundary is the actually upper border of the epiglottis, while lower boundary is the lower border of the cricoid cartilage. In front, it opens into the larynx, while behind will be cervical vertebrae, mostly C4, C5. So, anterior wall, as there is opening for larynx, it is called as a inlet of larynx. There are two cartilages which are present. One is called as a thyroid cartilage, and second one is called as a cricoid cartilage. These both cartilages are found within the larynx. Now, posteriorly, above the cervical vertebra, which are mostly C4, C5, they are covered by three constrictor muscles. These are circular muscles of the pharynx. These are superior, middle, and posterior constrictors. In the lateral wall, we can found piriform fossa or piriform sinus. So these is the boundaries of the laryngopharynx. So again, just like nasopharyngeal isthmus, oropharyngeal isthmus, we have to understand the laryngeal inlet, because again, it has to close down whenever the person is swallowing. So above and front will be the epiglottis. Below and behind will be interarytenoid fold. Then on each side we have a aryepiglottic fold. So this aryepiglottic fold is present on either side. There is a common myth that whenever this larynx has to close down during swallowing, the epiglottis falls back so that this inlet is closed. Now, this is wrong. This closure of the laryngeal inlet is done by opposition of the aryepiglottic folds. So these aryepiglottics, they oppose to each other so that this inlet is closed. So that is laryngeal inlet. Now, in previous slide, I mentioned the term called as a piriform fossa. Now, what is piriform fossa or sinus? This piriform fossa is actually a deep depression found in the mucosa, so which is present on the lateral wall of the laryngopharynx. Here, this is a piriform fossa which can be found in the lateral wall of the laryngopharynx. Here you can clearly see this is the epiglottis. This is the aryepiglottic fold. Then this piriform fossa is bounded medially by aryepiglottic fold and laterally by a mucous membrane covering the thyroid cartilage, as well as thyroid membrane. Now, just beneath this mucous membrane, there is an internal laryngeal nerve. So, this piriform fossa, which is present on lateral side of the laryngeal inlet, which was used as a lateral food channel in ruminating animals like cows, buffaloes. And This is also called as a smuggler's fossa, which was artificially deepened by the smugglers to keep some precious materials inside the body to avoid customs or the public eye. That's why this is also called as a smuggler's fossa. Also, this is a catch point for the foreign bodies, especially the fish bones or the hard things inside the food. So these foreign bodies, they might injure this internal laryngeal nerve which is present just beneath the mucous membrane. So because of this injury to this nerve, there might be anesthesia in the supraglottic part of the larynx. When we will learn about larynx, you will come to know what are the parts of larynx. So that is the importance of the piriform fossa, which is also called as a smuggler's fossa. Now, we have learned boundaries of the pharynx, we have learned subdivisions of pharynx, and we have learned about three isthmus, that is nasopharyngeal, oropharyngeal, and laryngeal inlet. So what is the structure of the pharynx? Now, pharyngeal wall is composed of 5 layers. Innermost layer is called as a mucosa. Next one is the submucosa. Then there is a pharyngobasilar fascia, which is also termed as a pharyngeal aponeurosis. Then there is a muscular coat, which has 2 layers. Outer circular layer, which consists of 3 constrictors, superior, middle, and inferior. Also, there is inner layer, which consists of longitudinal muscles, which also has 3 muscles. Now, the outermost layer is called as a buccopharyngeal fascia. Now, the mucosa, which is found in the pharynx, it's different on different levels. In the nasopharynx, this mucosa has an epithelium that is called as a respiratory epithelium. That means that is ciliated columnar epithelium. Now, just in the oropharynx and laryngopharynx, the epithelium changes to the wear and tear epithelium, that is non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. So, from transition from ciliated to non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium, lowermost part of the nasopharynx there might be found is the non-ciliated columnar epithelium. So that is the mucous membrane of the pharynx. Submucosa is thickened. The pharyngobasilar fascia or pharyngeal aponeurosis is found in the whole part of the pharynx. It starts from the base of the skull and it covers the muscles. And it closes down the sinus of Morgagni. So we'll learn about this sinus of Morgagni. Very problem with it.
What is that?
4-5 कम लेना लगा था.
भरपूर स्टुडंट आहे मॅडम.
मग ते होणारच आहे का?
नाही त्याच्यामुळे नाही होत ते. चेक कर मॅडम.
आता मला कसं कळेल? त्यांनी सांगितलं तरच कळू शकेल.
त्यांना विचारून तुम्ही आवाज
If anyone can hear me, can you tell me whether there is audio is clear or not?
Yes.
So can we continue with the lecture?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. तिला सुद्धा समोर आहे.
हाँ. Okay, from your side, you have to mute the audio. Okay. So, the mucous membrane is different in different parts of the pharynx. The pharyngobasilar fascia starts from the base of the skull and it closes down the sinus of Morgagni. We'll learn about in the next slides. And there is a muscular coat which has two layers. Outermost is a circular layer and innermost is the longitudinal layer. The last layer is called as an areolar layer. Also, it's called as a buccopharyngeal fascia. Now, this buccopharyngeal fascia is inconsistent layer and some might not consider it as a areolar fascia. So, that is the structure of the pharynx. So, I think from your side the audio is not mute. Now we'll learn about the muscles. First we will see the longitudinal muscles. There are three in number. First one is called as a stylopharyngeus muscle. Second is called as a palatopharyngeus muscle. Third one is called as a salpingopharyngeus muscle. Now, stylopharyngeus muscle, as the name suggests, it arises from the styloid process, that is the base of styloid process. And this muscle is supplied by the glossopharyngeal nerve. We have already learned about this muscle whenever we are learning with the styloid process. So, glossopharyngeal nerve is a ninth cranial nerve. Now, the next is palatopharyngeus muscle. This muscle arises from palatine capillomatosis, which is present in soft palate attached to the posterior border of the hard palate, which is also attached by two fasciculi. These both muscles, actually all three muscles are inserted on the posterior border of thyroid cartilage. Now, this palatopharyngeus muscle is supplied by the cranial root of 11th cranial nerve through the pharyngeal plexus. Now, third muscle is salpingopharyngeus muscle. I mentioned this muscle in the second slide that salpingopharyngeus muscle is found in salpingopharyngeal fold, which is extending from tubal elevation up to pharynx. This muscle originates from the cartilage of auditory tube and is inserted on the posterior border of thyroid cartilage. It is also supplied by cranial root of 11th nerve through pharyngeal plexus. So these are three longitudinal muscles of the pharynx. We can see here, this is the base of the skull. We can see the nasal cavity. Now, this is a stylopharyngeus muscle, which we can see. Now, this is the oral cavity. So, in between the nasal and oral cavity, we can find the soft palate. Now, this orange color suggests the palatopharyngeus muscle. So, part of this muscle, that is fasciculus, goes around the pharynx and it encircles it. And because of this muscle's elevation, we can find a ridge on the mucosa, and that ridge is called as a Pachydermus ridge. Now, this green structure resembles the superior constrictor muscle. This blue muscle here, it is shown as the inferior constrictor muscle. Now, this is the pink structure suggests the salpingopharyngeus muscle. So, these are three longitudinal muscles of the pharynx. In diagrammatic representation, here we can see this is a palate, this is the auditory tube, this is a styloid process. This is the epiglottis, this is thyroid cartilage, and this is the posterior border of the lamina of thyroid cartilage. So, from palate by two fasciculi, this is the palatopharyngeus muscle, uppermost layer. Second muscle we call it as salpingopharyngeus muscle, which arises from the auditory tube. And third muscle from styloid process, that is stylopharyngeus muscle. So above is palatopharyngeus, second one is salpingopharyngeus, and third one is stylopharyngeus muscle. Now circular muscles. Circular muscles, there are three number. All three are called as a constrictor muscle. According to their position, we call them superior, middle, and inferior. Now, superior constrictor muscle takes origin from in a continuous line from pterygoid hamulus, which is around on we can found on the pterygoid plate. Then pterygomandibular raphe, which is attached from pterygoid process to the mandible. Then over the mandible, then side of the tongue. So this is the origin. This muscle arises from here and then is inserted on the pharyngeal tubercle. Pharyngeal tubercle we can found on the base of the skull. We have already learned about this pharyngeal tubercle in the occipital bone. Now the superior constrictor muscle is supplied by pharyngeal branch of the vagus nerve carrying the cranial root of 11th nerve. So it's supplied through pharyngeal plexus. Now, middle constrictor, below the superior one, it arises from the lesser cornu and the greater cornu of hyoid bone. So, hyoid bone has two processes. One is smaller, which is called as a lesser cornu. One is larger, so it is called as a greater cornu. And second one is called as a stylohyoid ligament. That means this ligament is attached from styloid process to hyoid bone. That is the origin. Is inserted on median fibrous raphe. This raphe is extending from pharyngeal tubercle vertically going downwards. So it's now this nerve supply of this muscle is also pharyngeal branch of vagus carrying the cranial root of 11th cranial nerve. Now third muscle is inferior constrictor muscle. This muscle is divided into two parts, that is thyropharyngeus and cricopharyngeus. Thyropharyngeus, as the name suggests, arises from thyroid cartilage. So oblique line on thyroid cartilage and a band between the thyroid and cricoid cartilage. This muscle is inserted again on median fibrous raphe. This thyropharyngeus part is supplied by the pharyngeal plexus and external laryngeal nerve. Now, cricopharyngeus, again, as the name suggests, is arises from cricoid cartilage and is supplied by recurrent laryngeal nerve. So these are the circular and longitudinal muscles of the pharynx. Here we can see the diagrams showing these muscles. So this is a pharyngobasilar fascia. This is a superior constrictor muscle. This is a middle constrictor muscle. And this is a thyropharyngeus part of inferior constrictor. This is cricopharyngeal part of inferior constrictor. Below that, esophagus will start. So these three constrictors overlap each other. Here we can see stylopharyngeus. This is a stylopharyngeus. This is a superior constrictor, middle constrictor, and inferior constrictor. You can see taking origin from thyroid cartilage and cricoid cartilage. Now there are some gaps present between these three muscles, though they are overlapping each other, and there are some important structures passing through these gaps. So we have to understand these structures as well. So first we have to understand these constrictor muscles, how they are placed. They are placed inside one another, like we are putting the paper cups inside one another. So uppermost is superior constrictor, then middle and lowermost is inferior constrictor. Here we can see this is the base of the skull. This is pharyngeal tubercle. And this is the pharyngeal aponeurosis. I told you about it, that it closes down the sinus of Morgagni. Now, sinus of Morgagni is a space found between the base of the skull and the superior constrictor. So, this is the superior constrictor, this is middle, and this is inferior. So, I told you there are gaps present between these constrictor muscles and some important structures passing through. So in total, we have the 4 gaps. So we'll learn one by one. First gap is present between the base of the skull and the superior constrictor. So what are the structures passing through it? This is the base of the skull and this is a superior constrictor. So we found pharyngotympanic tube, that is auditory tube. Then second structure is levator palatine muscle, and third structure is ascending palatine artery. So these are the structures found between the base of the skull and superior constrictor, that is sinus of Morgan. Second gap is present between the superior and middle constrictor. Structures passing through is the stylopharyngeus muscle and the nerve supplying, that is glossopharyngeal nerve, 9th cranial nerve. So these two structures pass through this gap. Third gap is between the middle constrictor and the inferior constrictor. Through these two structures pass again. One is internal laryngeal nerve. Second structure is superior laryngeal artery. Then below the inferior constrictor, again we found two structures, that is between inferior constrictor and esophagus. These two structures are recurring laryngeal nerve and inferior laryngeal artery. So these gaps and the structures passing through these gaps are very important. So you have to learn by heart. Now, in short, we will see the nerve supply and the blood supply of the pharynx. So we already learned motor supply through the muscles. Now we'll see what is the sensory supply of the pharynx. So for different parts of pharynx, we have different nerves. For the nasopharynx, we have a pharyngeal branch of pterygopalatine ganglion from trigeminal nerve. Trigeminal nerve is the 5th cranial nerve. For oropharynx, we have a 9th nerve, that is 9th cranial nerve. Sorry. 9th cranial nerve, that is glossopharyngeal nerve. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So third structure or the third part of the pharynx is laryngopharynx and is supplied by the internal laryngeal nerve. Now the blood supply of the pharynx. This is again mostly supplied by the branches of external carotid artery. So these branches are ascending pharyngeal artery, ascending palatine and tonsillar artery, greater palatine and pharyngeal artery, and lingual artery. And the venous drainage goes to the pharyngeal plexus. So that is the sensory nerve supply, blood supply, and the venous drainage of the pharynx. And that concludes today's topic. So remaining part of the pharynx, that is deglutition and the clinical anatomy of the pharynx, we will cover in the